Hi guys, I welcome you all to another lecture on anthropology series. So with this topic today, we are going to complete the 1.4 and tomorrow we'll start with the next topic. So let's get started. Yes. So now by far we have read about Darwin's theory, Lamarck's theory, but we have seen ki in their theories there were some issues. Like in the criticism we had read ki even though Darwin's theory was very innovative, he talked about evolution in a scientific way, okay, but even then the exact causes for variation which causes evolution was not known to him, which could be mutations or genetic part of it. He was not he could not comprehend those things, okay. So a new modern theory came up which is known as a synthetic theory of evolution. This is called synthetic theory because it is a synthesis of many theories and works of many biologists, evolutionists, people who have done different works. So this theory was compiled by or published by Dobbs-Hansky. Okay, so Dobbs-Hansky in 1937 published Genetics and Origin of Species. This he published, Genetics and Origin of Species, where he concentrated the ideas of Darwin, Mendel, Sewall Wright, Hugo de Vries, etc. Okay, so here he concentrated the ideas. Okay, so he synthesized the idea of many thinkers and evolutionists. So this theory mainly includes which was missing in the Darwin's theory, that is genetics, the role of genetics, the role of mutation, population genetics, etc. Okay, so he emphasized on genetic changes, as in not he just compiled the theory. This theory emphasizes on genetic changes as cause of evolution. Okay. So basically there was Lamarck, who believed that there was inner urge in organisms that caused them to evolve. And then Darwin came. He said variation is the cause, but he did not know what caused this variation. Okay, so this synthetic theory, or what we call as the modern theory, it finalized that genetic changes play a major role in evolution. Okay. So now the factors causing variation, which were not known to Darwin, but by now these changes were synthesized in the modern theory. So basically it is chromosomal aberration, genetic drift, migration and gene flow, recombination, natural selection and isolation, and genetic mutation. We'll deal with all of them one by one. So what is genetic mutation? By now we have understood that genes are that information that is encoded in the DNA of the person. So whenever this is like father and this is like mother, their genes get transferred to their child. Okay, so this way genes get transferred to the next generation. That is the genetic information. Okay, so mutation. What is mutation now? Mutation is a sudden change in the gene frequency. There is a sudden change. For example, we can say that there is a population. This is a population in which mostly people have have black eye color. Okay, let's assume that black eye color is the dominant color here. Okay, But due to some mutation, now blue eye color emerges in the population, and over the period of time it dominates also. So blue eye color, just the fact that people having black eye color, there was a mutation, and now the people are having blue eye color. Okay, so this is just a mutation. Okay, so it was not like people who were only having black eye color could not have blue eye color, right? But now just a switch has happened, now they are having blue eye color. Just an example, okay, to make you understand what mutation is. Mutations generally are not variations, you should understand this thing. For example, this example which I have given, this can be called variation because this is not a deleterious thing. Deleterious means something which is dangerous. Mutation generally is referred to a variation that is dangerous, okay, which can cause like danger to the species or organisms. Okay, so that is called mutation. But in this context it is used that sudden changes in the gene frequency, which they have called mutations, are the causes of variation, because over the period of time such small changes, for example color change ho gaya, then any other changes due to post environmental pressures, okay, any changes that has happened will make a very new stock of species, because mutation will not happen in only one aspect, that is eye color. It can be many other things, it will be many other things in fact, right? So over the course of time different characters will change, they will cause variation, and over the period of time it will cause evolution. You understand? So this was the first thing in the synthetic theory. The next is, let's go on and see. Next is, let's first do the chromosomal aberration. What is chromosomal aberration now? We all know that the genes, the information in the genes is encoded in the DNA, and DNA is a part of our chromosome. Okay, it is stored in the chromosomes. So now we have 21 pair of chromosomes, in which 20 pairs are autosomes and 1 pair is a sex chromosome. So total pairs are 21 and total chromosomes are 42, in which the sex chromosomes can be either XX or XY. So this you now understand. So if there is any change in the number of chromosome or in the structure of chromosome, that is called chromosomal aberration. Now number में change कैसे होगा? For example, there should be 42 chromosomes and instead of that only 41 are passed on to the next generation, or maybe 43, 44, 40. Any change in the number is chromosomal aberration due to number. Okay, and structure, let us assume that this is the first thing. Okay, this is one. Let's do the second one. How can a variation occur in the structure? For example, the normal chromosome looks like this. This is a normal pair of chromosome. Okay, and now for example, in the meiosis phase, when the in the phase where chromosomes are it's a phase where they are condensed into forming chromosomes. For example, there is metaphase, prophase. We'll read it in the next chapters. In any phase of formation of chromosome, there is deletion, for example, in some part of the DNA, some part of the chromosome. For example, let us assume that in this chromosome, this part which I have shown here separately gets disjointed and gets separated. Okay, so only this much is left. Only this much is left. Okay, or rather I should do it like only this much is left. So part of deletion in some part, or deletion in the whole part, we can say whole part like this, the whole part gets deleted, or the whole chromosome only gets deleted, but that will come in the number. Let's assume that some part of it has got deleted. Okay, so this is chromosomal aberration in the structure. So obviously if there is some change, it will cause some variation, and over the period of time that will cause certain evolution, right? So this was the second thing, the second component of variation. First was the genetic mutation, second was chromosomal aberration, third is genetic drift. Now, oh, just wait. Yeah, what is genetic drift now? Genetic drift is nothing but change in the gene frequency that occurs by chance. Now, how by chance? And in large populations, we assume the effect of genetic drift as negligible, because the more populated the group is, small changes will not matter, and if they occur by chance, they will not matter. For example, let us assume we have this island, and people in this island, there are like 10 people in this island. Okay, let's or maybe this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 people in this island, having, let's take as blue eye color. So this okay, wait, yeah, blue eye color. This person, this person, this person, this person, and this person were having blue eye color, and the rest having black. So certain by chance they all die, just by chance they die. So only people with black eye color are left. So over the time they will reproduce, and they will mate, and they will create a new group of people, finally eliminating the blue eye colored people. The original stock had blue eye color dominant, but due to some chance, all these people having blue eye color died. Only people with black eye color were left, and over the time they mated, and they had like new population stock came up which had black color eye color as the dominant one. So this is genetic drift. Impact नहीं होगा variation पे of course, but कभी अगर ऐसा हुआ तो it will create an impact, right? So this was genetic drift. Next is migration and gene flow. Again, migration and gene flow will play a relatively lesser role in variation, because for example, migration has always happened. There was never a time when there was not migration. People were mobile, people have moved from continents to continents and places to places. So the influence of migration on variation is not like a lot, but we can consider, because for example, if there is a certain stock of people, that is A, this is island A, who only breed among themselves, who only like mate among themselves, and there is a certain group B that comes and marries with these people of island A. So over the time, for example, so over the time they go and mate with the island A people. Over the time, what will happen? They will become a heterogeneous mix, right? They will no more remain a group which had only the characters of group A, but they will also have characters of group B, right? It will also have, so it will over time the group A will become something like this. Okay, so this is migration, and gene flow is this only. Gene flow is that due to migration, the genetic information, or the genetic recombination happens. The people from this group, mated with the people of group A, and their information, their genes got mixed with the genes of group A. So over the time, a heterogeneous mix we saw. So that was gene flow, right? Next is recombination. Recombination is more or less the same thing. Even when two parents, their information passes on to their child, that is also part of recombination, right? For example, we will always see that a child is a mix of both the parents. It's not like only one parent's. Obviously, the genes can dominate, but they are more or less the product of their parents and their environment. So what we can say is, for example, this is parent A and this is parent B, and this parent is black in color. Let us assume this parent is white in color. So it may happen that the child does not exhibit pure black color or pure white color. It may turn out to be a wheatish skin tone, a skin tone which both the parents does not exhibit, but a slightly brownish skin tone. Okay, so this is recombination. And these recombinations are done at all levels. This is not just about the color of the skin. It could be the color of hair. It could be the shape of body type, the fat deposition in the body, right? The height, the component of many other things. These all things create a whole new bunch of characters in a person. So that would be recombination. And recombination happens when, for example, this is a chromosome. This is a homologous pair of chromosome, right? During recombination, they may turn to like this. So it may turn out to become something like, let's assume this one was like this. Okay, so it may turn out to be like this, and the other one may turn out to be like this, right? So they have like recombined. So this is recombination. Okay, so next is natural selection and isolation. Now this is very important, because as we have seen, what causes variation? We had seen the role of mutation. We had seen genetic drift. We had seen the role of migration and gene flow. We had seen the role of recombination. But all these things will create variation. Okay? But they will not create a new species altogether. Here the species is not getting created, or formation of new species is not happening. Only when there is natural selection, isolation, that will work on these factors or any other factors which causes variation, formation of new species will happen. So formation of new species will only happen when on variation, natural selection or isolation or these kind of forces influence the formation of new species. So natural selection, we know, for example, let us say that we know that in tropical areas, the people with the sickle cell anemia sickle cell anemia are more as compared to other areas, because sickle cell anemia provides resistance against malaria. Okay, so let us assume in sickle cell anemia the shape of the RBC changes from something like this to more of a sickle shape. So now a person who has heterogeneous genes, for example, who doesn't have purely like normal RBCs or purely normal sickle cell RBCs, he has something more like this, which is more like a heterogeneous RBCs, okay, which has the combination of both normal and sickle cell. He has both. So this will lead him to mild illness for sickle cell, but will give resistance against malaria. So in tropical areas, people who have this kind of RBCs are favored more as against the normal ones, because the normal ones, if they do not die from sickle cell, they are prone to malaria a lot, and a person who has pure sickle cell shaped RBCs will, if not, will be resistant to malaria, but will be very severely affected by sickle cell. So a heterogeneous person who has the component of both, even though he will have a mild illness from sickle cell, but will be resistant to malaria. So what natural selection has done is, in tropical areas, natural selection has favored the people with heterogeneous RBC cells. Okay, so now you understand how natural selection plays a part. In normal places where malaria is not so prevalent, people having heterogeneous RBCs will not be considered the healthiest people. But in tropical areas where malaria is prevalent, it has favored, the natural selection has favored it. So you understand how natural selection plays a part on variation, right? So now this was what are the factors causing variation, and how natural selection and isolation plays a part on it. Okay, so this was all about modern synthetic theory, in which all the ideas, along with what causes variation, how other factors like natural selection, isolation plays a part on it, all have been compiled, and that is why it is known as a modern theory, synthetic theory, because almost all things are touched upon which can cause or can become a factor of evolution. Okay, so now let's go on to the next topic, that is Doll's rule. Again, these were people who came after Darwin, and they had their own views on evolution. So Doll was a Belgian paleontologist. He said that evolution is irreversible and irrevocable. Okay, in 1893 he said evolution is irreversible and irrevocable. Now what did he mean by saying this? Evolution is irreversible means you can't go back. Irrevocable means you can't go back. It is because the species are a product of environment that cannot be replicated. Now what does he mean by this? Let me just explain this to you more clearly. See, he said that species are a product of their environment which cannot be replicated. For example, let us suppose this is a cold area, or let's not assume this is a cold area. Let's assume this was Ice Age. Okay, this was Ice Age period. So the conditions were different. So the species that evolved, or who had reproductive success, or those who could sustain this kind of an environment. After this, if interglacial period would have come, that is when it was comparatively warmer times. आइस एज का एक पीरियड ख़त्म हुआ, उसके बाद थोड़े वार्म टाइम आया, ठीक है. सो नाउ दीज स्पीशीज मस्ट हैव इवॉल्व टू दीज न्यू एनवायरमेंट, right, which was different from the ice age. If they had reproductive success and they were able to sustain this and reproduce successfully, so this was a new species now, because these species changed into species number 2, which was different from species number 1, and so on. Over the course of time, they must have evolved into species 3 and species 4. Now, is it possible to go back to being species 1 again? For example, if I take a example, humans came from an human ape-like species, which was once even quadruped. Quadruped means walking with your hands also, with the support of your hands, means four all your limbs. Okay, it was an ape. It was an ape who was walking in a quadruped way. ठीक है, उससे क्या है, हमारा जो फोरम एंड मैग्नन है, मीन्स जहाँ पे हमारा हेड जो हेड हमारा अटैच होता है हमारे नेक से, वो यहाँ के बजाय कहीं ऐसे हो सकता था, in the kind of ape, because ape was walking like this. Wait, ape was walking like this. Ape, sorry, my drawing is very bad. Ape was walking like this, and we are walking like this. Okay, so in this way, our spinal cord is also different, and its spinal cord was also different. In this way, our pelvis girdle, or means the hip portion, also changed. Our cranial capacity, brain size also changed. So a lot of things changed just because humans evolved to become bipedal, erect. Okay, more evolved, having complex brains. Okay, so is it possible to go back to being this species again? Right, so different very unique environments created these changes in humans, which are not possible now to go back to. Right, this is what Dawes was trying to explain. For example, he says, after extinction, flying reptiles combination never came back. Means there was a time when the reptiles had wings and they were flying, but today's reptiles do not fly. But that doesn't mean that the combination of flying cannot return in some other species. It didn't work out for reptiles, but doesn't mean that somebody else cannot fly, right? As we see today, birds fly and other species fly, right? Bats fly, they're a mammal, they fly. So it can come back, but it will not go back to reptiles again. The flying combination with reptile will not come back. Now there are certain exceptions to his theory. For example, he says doesn't mean similar adaptive patterns cannot come back. I've already told you that this is an exception, that flying, the concept of flying can come back. Reptiles themselves came back, even though they were not flying again, but they came back. Cetaceans, that is whales and dolphins, adapted to aquatic life, yet did not become like fish. So they did not have the streamlined shape like a fish, but they were they still adapted to the aquatic environment. That means these are certain exceptions to Dawes' rule. And reverse mutation is seen in bacteria, but only one stage. Now he said that you cannot revoke or reverse the evolution, but in bacteria, reverse mutation is seen, but that is also seen for only one stage. So now we can conclude by saying that Doll's rule was not like very very empirically tested, and it was like a little haphazard, and it did a lot of descriptive generalization. It did not have a lot of, what you can say, it was not scientific. Okay, so this was Doll's rule. Next is Cope's rule. He was an American paleontologist. He was American paleontologist, and he had done extensive study on fossils of mammals. So whatever he came up with, he studied the fossil of mammals and then he came up to his theory. So he said basically the organisms have the tendency to increase in size. Again, we have read this before also. So he said organisms have tendency to increase in size in the course of evolution. Second thing he said, less specialized organisms are found for longer time in the fossils. What does this mean now? Basically, less specialized species means, as of now they do not they do not have a very very specific niche. Specific niche means very very specific role in the ecosystem. As of now they are like jack of all trades, like they are not masters of anything, but they are jack of all trades. So if they are jack of all trade, that means they can be fitted into very many things. Okay, so being less specialized is better sometimes as being very very specialized, because if you are very very specialized, then you're prone to get extinct if the environment doesn't support you. For examples, as in case of dinosaurs, as in case of the deer whose antlers were very specialized at one point. So if you specialize a lot, and if the environment is such that it does not favor you, so it is difficult. So less specialized species will remain for a longer time. That is what he meant. Then he gave examples like horses, camels, and all herbivores show such tendency as in the tendency to increase in size. He believed that the ancestor of horse was the size of a dog at one point. So they believe that they have the tendency to increase in size. Similar for mammals like tortoise, crocodile, even dinosaurs. All had the tendency to increase. So now what is the exception? Exception is a mole. Mole is a burrowing mammal. Burrowing means जो ज़मीन के नीचे रहते हैं. Flying bats and many carnivores who had gigantic sizes at the time of Pliocene and Pleistocene. So now mole, according to him, not according to him, but it's an exception to the Cope's rule, decrease in size, because उनको छोटे छोटे होल्स बनाकर ज़मीन के अंदर रहना है, तो बड़ा साइज बॉडी का बड़ा साइज सपोर्ट नहीं करता उनके उसको. सो दैट इज़ वाई उनका साइज छोटा हो गया. सिमिलरली मैनी कार्निवोर्स, ठीक है, फ्लाइंग बैट्स जिनके बड़े साइजेस थे प्लियोसिन या प्लीस्टोसिन टाइम पे, दे रिड्यूस्ड इन साइज. सिमिलरली फॉर vertebrates in quaternary period, herbs and shrubs which were once gigantic trees, very big, now became just herbs and shrubs, so reduced in size. It is an exception to Cope's rule. Again the same criticism, that is descriptive generalization, not very empirically tested. One more thing, why he thought that what is the reason to increase in size? Because if they increase in size, so with increase in size the body surface would decrease, and that will help them to conserve body heat in cold environment. So this is Allen's rule, and these rules we are going to read in the next chapter, so you will understand this in much more clarity. And next is for capturing large size herbivores. If the herbivores are very big and you're a carnivore and you're very petite and tiny, so how are you going to hunt this herbivore? So that is why they needed to increase their size. Next is to increase fecundity and reproductive success. it is known that in bigger sized species, the reproductive success also increases. The chances of survival of the child increases. Okay. Next is avoid predators. If you have a big size, gigantic size, अब कोई खली से हर बंदा डरेगा ना, कोई ऐसे जाकर कोई छोटा सा जाकर उनको डरा तो नहीं सकता ना. So it is the same thing. Okay. This is the reason to increase in size. Next is gause rule. This is the last. After this we will finish this chapter. This is the last thing. He was a Russian biologist and he gave the principle of competitive exclusion. Now his theory is very, very scientific, and this is also a part of environment. We have read this concept in environment also. Now what he believed was कि competitive exclusion क्या होता है. For example, this is a forest and there are limited resources in this forest, and there are like 10 species in this, not 10 species but 10 organisms in this forest. Okay, so now they are competing for the same light, shade, food, shelter, okay, which are limited in this forest. Limited, right? So if they have to survive, either they will have to change their niche, that is their functional role. They will have to diversify into different eco niches, so that they do not overlap each other. They're not competing for similar food, same place to live, shade, light, everything. Okay, either they do this or they compete within each other and die and do not survive. So this is competitive exclusion. Okay, adaptive radiation may occur over a period of time in order to survive. This is adaptive radiation is, you adapt to changing environment, or because there is so much competition, you adapt into different niches altogether, right? For example, now this phenomena we cannot see in the wild, because हम थोड़ी ना जाके forest में देखते हैं कि कब किसने अपना eco niche change कर लिया, कैसे वो change हो गए. But it is easier for us to do it in a lab and see. For example, ऐसा ही एक experiment paramecium पे किया था. Paramecium aurelia and P. caudatum, Paramecium caudatum, ये दो varieties of paramecium हैं. उनको अलग अलग कल्चर करके देखा, तो देखा aurelia and caudatum both survived. But when they were like cultured together, we saw that aurelia exterminated caudatum, which means that caudatum could not adapt, and aurelia took advantage and survived while caudatum got extinct. So this was the concept of competitive exclusion. You compete, and if you cannot adapt, you become extinct. Parallelism and convergence. From this, parallelism and convergence is a very simple thing. Parallelism is also called homology, that is evolution of two related species in same direction. For example, these are two species which are developing parallelly in the similar directions only, and they had a common ancestor at one point. Okay, for example, new and old world monkeys. Next chapter is all about old world and new world monkeys. So basically, once they had a same ancestor, and they are developing into even though now they are different species, but similar characters still are there in these species. Okay, for example, absence of tail in man, great apes and gibbon. Now great apes, man and gibbon are very different species today, but being so different, all of them do not possess a tail. there is absence of tail. So this is a feature which they have developed independently but is same. So the feature is parallel, but they have derived it on their own independently. That means यहाँ पे था, यहाँ पे तीनों के पास नहीं आया और वो इन तीनों ने इंडिपेंडेंटली एक्वायर किया, ठीक है, इन जो भी इन्वायरमेंट के प्रेशर्स में रहकर. ओके, नेक्स्ट इज कन्वर्जेंस. दिस प्लीज चेंज इट टू ई. Convergence, that is analogy. Now here two species are not related but develop similar feature due to similar evolutionary pressure. Now what is it trying to say? This was parallelism, that they had a same ancestor. For example, this is man, this is gibbon, this is ape, and they developed similar character, that is absence of tail, right? Now here this is one species, this is second species, which do not have a common ancestor. Ancestors are different, right? But still develop a similar feature. Okay, here we have one common ancestor, here we have two ancestors but similar feature. For example, development of wings in birds, bats, or streamlined shape of whales and fishes, right? Now birds are different category and bat is a mammal, different category. Even birds, they are aves, and bat is a different category, but both got wings. Okay, or fishes are different and whales are again mammals, both got streamlined shape of body, you know. Sorry, what have I written? Streamlined shape of body, right? So this was all about convergence and parallelism. With this we are done with 1.4, and soon I'm going to come with the next lectures. So please like, share and subscribe. Thank you guys.